Hi, this is Leland Chee, creative executive at Lucasfilm, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
I know I said we shouldn't broadcast from here, but I tried to reach out to Bix. I never got through. Mina Rao's been shut down.
Last time we spoke, you told me you had new business coming in. You told me you were waiting.
I think I told you I was tired of waiting.
This is sounding serious.
It wasn't then. Might not be now. I still have several things pending. It's just, I have concerns. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
I was sure if I went shopping, you'd be delayed and we wouldn't have to do this.
No such luck.
We could pretend that you're not back.
We can't cancel again. We can't.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Sagrona Teema, friends. I promised myself I wasn't going to do that, but I couldn't resist. I'm Dan Zehr, your host of Coffee with Kenobi, and we are going to talk about the second episode in Season 2 of Andor. The episode is, of course, titled Sagrona Teema. I want to welcome all of you to the show. As you know, if you listened earlier when we looked at the first episode, we're looking at every episode of Season 2 of Andor on a week-by-week basis. This is a bountiful feast, and we're not going to rush through it. It took a long time for everyone to make this Star Wars delicacy, and we're not going to rush through this incredible meal. So we're bringing back two all-stars, two veterans of Coffee with Kenobi. First, from Short for a Stormtrooper, a 15-minute Star Wars podcast, Bob Gerard. Bob, welcome back to the show.
Well, Sagrona Teema Salam, Dan. Happy to be back, as always. You know, there are a certain contingent of us that think that Tabuite is the Chandrilan greeting that we really wish we were using from the Star Cruiser days.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. But I'm delighted to be here and happy to dive in on this episode. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Our other guest, by popular demand, he blew us out of the water with his premiere 2 weeks ago for the first episode of Andor. So we brought him back, the one and only John Heil. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, Dan. I can't believe I passed the test in the first episode, and it's just honored to be back to join you again.
Well, your check cleared, so why not? Yeah, look, originally, well, you know, before I get into all that, let's just go around the room and we'll just give one word to describe the episode and sort of our overall thoughts on it. And Bob, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I sure will. You know, it was interesting, Dan, because I love the fact that you were doing, you know, one episode at a time, 1 week at a time, and really milking it out. On my podcast, we are doing, well, we started off trying to do the entire 3-episode arc in 15 minutes, and we realized that wasn't going to work. So just starting this week, we're now releasing 2 a week, at least for the run of Andor, to make sure that we at least have half an hour to talk about it. So when you asked me to come back on, I was like, I just did 15 minutes about 3 episodes. How am I going to talk for, 45 minutes or an hour about just one? But then I watched it again in prep and I took 2 pages of notes. So I'm really excited about this. And having listened to your episode 1, I was anticipating you asking this question. So my one word is commitment. Commitment. Because I think a strong underlying theme of the entire arc, but just this episode, I know we're just focusing on this episode, is the level of commitment that the different characters have to their causes. So you can kind of take at one extreme, you've got Perrin, who I would argue has absolutely no commitment to any cause except for hedonism. That comes through in his Sagrona Teema Salam, in his toast. It's all about joy, which is really just about being happy in the moment. Nothing matters. You know, let's just go eat and drink and be merry because tomorrow we die. Right. To the other extreme, you've got Luthen, who is cause above all else. You know, and that harkens back to his speech from last year. And then all of the other characters, I think, slot somewhere in there in the middle. And as the show is continuing, we're seeing different slides on that scale. But the commitment to the cause, how much are you all in on it, is what really stood out for me for this episode.
I love it. John, what do you think?
Well, having been in one episode, now I know there's a word. So I actually gave this some thought too. That doesn't mean I'm picking a good word, and certainly my explanation won't be nearly as good as Bob's. But the word I wrote down is desperation. And I think that's going to certainly become magnified throughout this series. Of course it is, right? But you see it so much here in episode 2, right? There's the folks I refer to lovingly as the nitwits in the jungle. They are obviously desperate upon desperate, so much that they've split into two warring factions for no good reason. And they're desperately hungry. They're desperately thirsty. They're desperate for a leader. They're desperate to figure out how to get out of there. That they're so desperate they continually do dumber and dumber things. But then you have all kinds of other desperation, right? Mon Mothma, in what should be sort of a wonderful experience, a wonderful family event coming up soon. The sort of the realization of what she is facing, something she thought was stable, the monetary support she's getting and the trust of her childhood friend is starting to unravel in front of her. And she's getting more and more desperate. But at the same time, childhood friend himself is also clearly desperate, and that leads to more desperation for her. The rock in her life, the person she could trust more than anything, is now, who knows what's going to happen next. Reports of him getting drunk and running his mouth. What does that mean? Is he going to do it again? His wife left him. He's experiencing financial pressures. He is now not the rock he once was, which potentially jeopardizes everything for Mon Mothma. Certainly we can talk about that more. So just more and more desperation to me is building, and I saw that in this episode.
Very good. My word pivots kind of all the time because with full disclosure, again, I'm very blessed. I had the good fortune to watch this whole thing a month and a half ago. So
you got those sweet screeners, Dan.
I did. And I'm very fortunate for that. And I've had a lot of time to think about these. When I first watched this, this isn't a throwaway episode, but it was my least favorite. But now that I've watched it with a different lens and some time to kind of think about the key points in this, I think this one's pretty important. So my word was going to be impactful, but I've changed that, and I think I'm gonna hyphenate a word that is not hyphenated, but I'm going to try to get away with it. It's dorsal fin. When you see a dorsal fin in the water, there's danger on the horizon.
Wow!
And it's not there yet, and it might pass. It might go away, but no, there are so many pivotal moments in this that there is some terror in the distance that we can see, that the characters can see, that we don't know the impact. We don't know the size. When you see a dorsal fin, if you're an expert, if you're Mr. Hooper, you can kind of guesstimate the size of the shark underneath the water. But these are not experts. Luthen, though, I think he might come the closest. He sees it. They all see it. I think I could point to every character here to see there are some warning signs on the starboard bow. So I'm going to go dorsal fin with this because we've got a lot to unpack.
Very clever.
You might just get a little bit different of John Williams' audio take on the dorsal fin than typical Star Wars.
It's true, but maybe not. We'll see. All right, so let's kick it off. John, why don't you start us off? I was tempted to kind of go characters, but I think that would just kind of take us. We might miss other things because you could easily spend one episode on just one character and just go through. You could spend 10 weeks on just this episode looking at each character individually, but let's just kick it off with something that jumped out to you that you think we need to discuss.
How about Deidre's attitude at the beginning of the episode as to this new assignment, and how it just seems like, I mean, this isn't what she wants to be working on. She doesn't want anything to do with the Gorman project. She is committed to finding Axis, which clearly hasn't panned out the way it looked like it might in the first season. And the advice she got outside of work, I presume that's ISB headquarters. I actually kind of wrote stuff down. The warning, hey, just about Axis. Next time, catch them first, then make them famous.
Yes.
I thought it was a wonderful statement. And then, the realization, the wisdom of her boss, whose name I'm not remembering.
It's Major Partagaz. Partagaz. It's a great name.
Partagaz.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That Gorman is a gift. And but of course that it's not an easy gift, because it's going to look like a demotion to everyone else, and she's got to play the part. But it's sort of like trust the process. You have been noticed. There's a reason why you got this assignment. So sort of suck it up and trust the process. That's what I got out of that conversation. But I'm curious as to what you two think.
I think, who do you trust when no one is trustworthy? This is, Partagaz appears to have Daedra's back, and it took a while to sort of earn that, but there's a respect there. He respects her talents, her inquisitive mind, and her detective skills. I mean, she was instrumental in season 1. Of course, things blew up. But that was for a lot of reasons, far bigger than the scope of her impact. So then you have to think about, is he giving good advice, or should Daedra trust her instincts? And I think that's a theme that will run kind of parallel throughout this season, which hopefully we will revisit.
Yeah, it's Dan, I'm telling you, you're doing the Lord's work, knowing that you've seen all of these.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time just talking about 2 because I'm through 6 now, right? So, I know I'm through. Wait, what do we get?
9.
Through 9.
You should be through 9. I'm through 6.
Okay. So yes,
none of those exist according to this. Yeah, we're only on episode 2.
Exactly. So episode 2. So I thought about this, John. I thought your insights were spot on. I was thinking too about the relationship between Partagaz and Daedra, and the shift that I noticed in that relationship between the first season and where we're at right now. In the first season of Andor, Partagaz is hard line, take no garbage, right? Like no nonsense. Everybody quivers in his presence. His relationship with Daedra in the first 2 episodes, I think, feels a lot more collegial, and it almost feels more like a mentor. Like a trusted mentor. The trust comes back into it. It seems like he's a little more tender, is not even close to the right word, but a little
for
softer,
him it is friendlier. I think.
Yeah.
He says it's a gift. Take it.
That's right. Yeah. So it's interesting, and it's also interesting to kind of do a compare and contrast between that male-female reporting relationship as well as Clea and Luthen, and their relationship, and how their relationship seems to have evolved a little bit more, because the vibe I'm picking up from those 2 is, in season 1, I thought, no question, Luthen is the boss. Clea works for him. What I'm starting to see through the first 2 episodes here is they are much more peers, partners. It almost makes me wonder who actually is in charge. It seems like a very solid partnership. And actually, I love that. I love that.
And that's a theme in this episode too. Who's in charge?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's absolutely a theme.
By the way, pro tip, because we were calling them the idiots in the jungle as well. My routine for watching this, actually, I should touch on this because Dan, I did have a very similar reaction to you the first time I watched it. It was kind of like, it's okay. It's also true that I saw the first one in Japan with an entire crowd of people who were, all loving it. And I watched the second one in the United Lounge at Narita Airport on my iPad. Very different experiences. I got through the second one. My first viewing of the second one is kind of like, But then what I typically do is I watch it the second time and I turn on the closed captions.
Yes.
And I turn on the audio description. I get so many more nice little details from that. So the audio description refers to them as the gorillas, which is probably too nice of a term to describe those yahoos out in the jungle. But anyway,
I mean,
the gorillas,
those fellows, those ne'er-do-wells that are hungry, that are thirsty, that are angry, that are directionless. They're such a wonderful metaphor, aren't they? For what do we do? Your passion means nothing without purpose. Your passion means nothing without a plan and without a focus. Leadership, true, authentic leadership that is selfless is required. They don't have this. They either have one who is deferent or one who is defiant. And it's a great example of where the rebellion is at this stage in the game. While this is going on, things are going on Lothal, across the galaxy in Star Wars Rebels, even though it's never addressed in this episode, because there's still rebel cells everywhere. Luthen is trying to get things in motion. He's got some very key pieces in place, but these are people with passion but no purpose, and they don't even think about, I love how throughout this episode, Cassian is just saying, it's raining. Maybe you guys think about some water.
Catch some.
Are you hungry?
Yeah.
Terrible. And
I do have a question about them. I thought I caught something, and I might have gotten it wrong, so I'll bounce it off you two. I thought when the two sides opened up on each other, but they started shooting at each other as they separated into their two camps, it looked to me like the first person to fall was the woman who was the only pilot they had. Am I right about that?
It was definitely the woman. And I do believe she was as close to a pilot as they had, I believe.
But they said she didn't
seemed to be the one who knows the most about the ships.
Right, but she didn't know how to fly that thing, which Cassian
she did not. Yeah, she definitely didn't know how to fly the TIE Avenger. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't blame her for it. It seems like it would have been very tough.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. As an HR guy, I kept looking at this and saying, this shows what happens when you don't have a good succession plan. Because I think that's what happened, right? Their leader, Maya, I believe, was her name, who actually dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we ever get all of the details, but something happened to her and there was no
second Cassian's contact. Yeah.
That's right. I do think that there is some scenario, there is some galaxy where Cassian could have turned these guys around. He could have stepped into that leadership vacuum and, maybe gotten something out of these guys, but his level of commitment to the cause right now, what he needed to do was get out of there. He needed to get out of there. He needed to get that ship out of there. And that was his priority. And so I think that was absolutely the right call for him to do that and just leave them on their own.
Well, I'll take it a step further. Without maybe the influence of Luthen in different things in his life, he could have been them.
Yeah.
Right? That's almost like a funhouse mirror of anger. He was just, he was spitting in their food. He was, causing problems, certainly committing crimes and illegal things and immoral things. But now he's doing things that have impact and matter. He's lighting sparks, which we of course see later in episode 8. Bob, wow, look at how much we've gone through, and we've only gotten through 1 point. Bob, why don't you?
I know. How much time do we have left?
Well, we're out of time. The internet's almost expired, so it's too bad.
Oh wow. Oh, good. Then I don't have to go to work tomorrow. That's super.
Good for you.
Okay. How about this? I'm going to get away from plot a little bit and into production, but world building. And this does tie back to my earlier comments a little bit about the Star Cruiser. So, those of us who did have the good fortune of being able to go on the Galactic Star Cruiser, that was part of the Chandrillan Star Line.
That's right.
I was feeling when I got to go on this twice. And when I was on
Same.
board, I did feel, I did feel some of the vibe of like Mon's apartment in Andor season 1. It seemed like there was some design connections. So it did feel very Chandrillan, but the amount of additional world building that they did, I just absolutely adored. I loved it. We got the Chandrillan language, even the Sagrona Teema Salam. The wedding was amazing. And, well, we haven't gotten to the wedding yet. I'm sorry, right? See, that's number 3.
We'll call it the rehearsal dinner.
Okay. How about, rehearsal dinner, which is the wedding hike. Like, really interesting. I don't know of any other culture on Earth that does a wedding hike. It seems like it was invented for this, but
it's
like
kind of
what
a
great
lovely idea. Yeah,
it really is. Yes.
There's so much about the Chandrillan culture that I think is super, super appealing that I could see. I will be shocked if next time we have a celebration, we don't have a full costuming group that is basically Chandrillans, and
it'll happen.
It'll happen. I know there's a lot of cosplayers who currently are doing it, but I think it's going to go the full 9 yards. So I just love the verite that level of world building brings to anything, whether it's Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones.
Sure.
And, Star Wars has, of course, traditionally always had a galaxy building, but this is taking it to a next level. And I just absolutely adored that. And then again, it's going to crank up in the next arc as well.
I do think it's interesting. For sure. I do think it's interesting that of all the times we see people come together on a celebratory cause in this episode, it's for drinks and they sit, but we never see anyone eat. Am I right? We never see anyone eating or breaking bread together.
I think you're right.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
What we do see them doing is walking in different sections together, and they're going up to somewhere that we don't actually see. But the fact that they never eat and break bread together, but they're in a celebratory place, if it is a rehearsal dinner, there is no dinner. That's perfect to me as a teacher of literature, because when you break bread, when you eat, when you come together, there's something intimate about that. There's a warmth, a welcomeness, a vulnerability. Let's nourish our minds, bodies, and souls together. Doesn't happen because this is a fractured concept. While the art, the outside ostentatiously is gorgeous, the Chandrillan architecture, the costuming, everything about it is just completely exquisite. But opulent, I would think, is probably a better word. But there is no actual community. Even like Mon's relationship with her husband is a facade. Everything is a facade, a gorgeous facade without substance, because the real stuff is going on behind the scenes. No one is actually showing their cards, except for the rare moments when Luthen and Mon Mothma have exchanges, and they're quick and they're brief and they're very intense. Or when her friend, his name is, I got it written down here,
Tay Kolma.
Yes.
Yeah.
When he reveals, what he reveals is a lot of ugliness because of debt, because of divorce, probably, because of not feeling like he has a place where he belongs. For all this stuff, all this opulence, all this togetherness, there is no bond. And I just think that is a very clever, clear sign that Tony Gilroy is such a master at showing us that this is such a broken galaxy.
I love that. And how you described it, that these little actual human moments, they're all sort of on the periphery. They kind of pull themselves out of the event for a moment and have them then go back in to this, what could be thought of as more of a political event than an actual breaking of bread, as you put it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, as cool as I think this all is, and as much as like I could see Disney reopening the Star Cruiser as a day trip if they kick the Imagineers who are now using it as office space, and and holding weddings there and doing the whole 9 yards, and I think that would be cool. You got to remember that for Mon and for Vel, like that's the antithesis, that's old dead culture. And I think to your point, Dan, about there's no breaking of bread, there's really no fellowship. It really shows the shallowness of that culture.
Yep.
And that's what Mon is trying to break away from, how she's trying to reform Chandrila and really reform the entire galaxy, to bring a little bit more depth there. And Perrin, I called out Perrin as being a complete hedonist. I think he's probably more typical of your typical Chandrilan person than
old-fashioned, if you will.
For sure.
Yes.
She can't believe they're doing this, even though she's sort of outwardly all in. But she cannot believe that she, of all people, is having this event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Well, for my first one, what do I really think is super important to bring up? I really like Cassian's restraint in this. This is also the first time we hear the idea, where is your husband? And I take this as a form of protection when I see it the first time. And I take it as this is her way of, it's almost like when you're a kid and you think a girl's cute or whatever, and you say something to them and like, oh yeah, my boyfriend. I mean, there are all kinds of sitcoms based on this whole premise. So initially I think she's just saying that for protection to keep this creepy Imperial away from her. But I think that Bix is very important because her trauma that she experienced in season 1, we see the nightmares in the first episode, and her absolute petrification, if that's even a word, when the Empire shows up, and when that commanding officer is clearly still low ranking, is hitting on her. He is coming on to her, and he is very creepy. He's very predatorial, and that's pretty frightening. And I think that's an interesting creative choice because it gives us as an audience the opportunity to feel the concern and the fear and the trepidation that she must feel, and we feel it because that's just an icky thing, period. And then you amplify that with her trauma, and it just brings up this horribleness that is the Empire.
Yeah, it's very sad that hits close to home, right? Like,
exactly.
It was a very realistic scenario. Mm-hmm.
You could watch it, I think, with the audio off, and just the initial encounter. You'd know exactly what both of them are thinking. I thought they both did it extraordinarily well. I mean, boy, the actor they picked as the creepy lieutenant. Yeah. Could he not be more perfect just to convey that? And her terror just in her eyes was just magnificent.
Absolutely. John, do you want to bring up your next point?
Sure. I will give a shout out actually to Perrin for his speech.
Yes.
It is what I liked about it, and I watched the episode twice, and the second time I took notes. It struck all the right chords for me as an actual real life dad's wedding speech. It was really, really well done. Obviously, he'd worked on it for a long time. He knew what he wanted to say. He said meaningful things for whatever a philanderer he is, however he's can be viewed. I thought he knocked it out of the park for what he was trying to accomplish through that speech. And I was kind of rooting for him as he was giving it. I just thought it was well done. And you could see it in Mon looking at him, kind of proud of him for how he was doing it. And of course, Lita, their daughter, was just in love with her dad at that moment. So I thought that was a very sweet scene that kind of changed his character just a little bit. Here he is, full on father mode, and I thought it was a treat. I liked it very much.
And then I think it also supports the whole thing of like this beautiful exterior with nothing to support it. Because the first time I watched it, I was also captivated. And then the second time I watched it, I thought of what Bob said at the beginning, which is, boy, this is just about hedonism. This is about being happy. And it breaks my heart because Mon clearly desperately wants to have a relationship with her daughter. Her daughter is appears to have more of the traits and the mindset of her father. Who as you said, John, we just really want to like. We really, because he has the makings of a charming, captivating presence, but he's not. He's just not. He's a bozo. He's a superficial bozo and a bit of a sleaze. Not as bad as the Imperial guy, of course. Not in the same ballpark. But it's really, it makes you sad because she has such selflessness, but she's also so human. And I think we need to see that. When you see Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi, many Bothans die to bring us this information. And, she shows up. She's in the deleted scenes of Revenge of the Sith and okay. And then she shows up in Rogue One, like, oh, that's kind of fun. And then she gets a little more in Rebels, and it's Genevieve O'Reilly. And then through season 1 of Andor, you start to realize, no, this is a person. This isn't just a caricature. Like, this is a person. And her tragedy, her sadness at this moment, where she keeps a brave face, is, I hope, and not just in this episode, definitely in other ones, I hope she gets an Emmy nomination because she's fantastic.
Yes. She's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I've been thinking about this as well, is you see so much from how Genevieve O'Reilly is playing Mon and building that character and becoming one of my absolute favorite characters in the Star Wars universe. You see what Carolyn Blackiston was able to do back in '83 with Return of the Jedi. And like, that character is basically just there to move the story along, right? It's like Basil exposition all over again. But she gets that look on her face and she says, many Bothans died to bring us this information. It's like, wow, here's a tactical leader who actually has a heart. And it's like, took just that foundation and have built on it just so amazingly well. And she is a lovely, ultimately tragic person.
For decades, I always had this thought, well, how is she in charge? What did she do? And what's so fulfilling with all of this is to show just how an amazing person she is. And yes, now it all makes sense. It's I think she might be my favorite character in this whole thing. She's just so well done.
Yeah,
I agree.
I did grow up thinking Leia was in charge, by the way, through, like, I walked away from Star Wars in '77 thinking Leia was in charge. And then I think the Marvel comic books kept that going. Like, she was the one who was actually running the whole thing. So when Mon Mothma showed up in Return of the Jedi, I was like, who is this? Leia's supposed to be in charge. But
I mean, even in Empire Strikes Back, who I ranked her? I don't know, nobody. I thought absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, what's your next one?
Let's talk about this one. Let's talk about the Dedra Cyril relationship.
Okay.
So it was really funny seeing the two actors in the panel for Andor at Celebration talking, kind of just looking at each other.
Great.
Dan, I don't know if you've had a chance to meet them, but they sure.
I've had them on the show. Yeah,
you have. That's right.
They're terrific. They're hilarious, and they're so opposite of their characters.
Yeah, Denise and Kyle. Like, I really just want to hang out with them sometime because they seem just like phenomenal actors because they're the complete antithesis of who they are on screen.
Yes.
But the two of them saying at that panel, like, yeah, Dedra and Cyril gets really weird, and it does get really weird, and it's going to continue to get really weird through the entire show. But here's a statement I want to throw out there to you guys and see what you think. Is I think Dedra absolutely loves Cyril as much as she is capable of love, which is a very, very small amount. So to Dedra, what love looks like, and probably what she has experienced through her childhood, which we're going to hear a little bit more about, is there's not much there. There's not much warmth there. And so just having any degree of concern about the status and well-being of another person that's what love looks like to Dedra. But it is not going to stop her from manipulating him, using him, basically treating him like a machine.
So you get all that out of the second episode, huh?
I did, yeah.
Huh. Tell me why. Because I didn't get that at all. All I got was a very cold, half-baked attempt at affection when she kind of touches his face. And then, we can't postpone this, but in this episode, we don't really see what that is. Although you could probably,
which is great.
Yes, it is.
It's
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my first take was, oh, she can't stand this guy and she's just using him and has been using him all along. But it was in the second rewatch that I think that weird little brush of a kiss on the cheek is as much genuine affection as she's capable of
as she can muster.
Because when you lived your whole life as a cold fish, then yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And the whole interaction around, the dinner party and are we going to cancel? Right? Cyril wants to cancel. Dedra's like, no, we're not canceling. She's not canceling because she's on an agenda. She's got a game plan that we're going to see. Well, she's going to execute on a plan.
Maybe. I feel like you're breaking the rules, Bob. This is
yeah, because we don't know what it is.
Sorry, I'm trying not to.
He offered her an out, and she's too tough for that. We're not going to cancel.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I mean, she is. It shows his.
She's cold as ice.
Or
she's
her
willing
giving
to
her an
sacrifice.
opportunity.
Yeah.
And she's like, come on, she's ISB. This isn't an issue. I will handle it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I when I just on this moment, I just thought of it as we saw. I would assume after what happened at the end of season 1, that because we see her legitimate fear and he comes to her rescue, that she is able to let him in, which she must be, otherwise it wouldn't be. It appears they're sharing a home together.
Right.
She literally has her hair down. It's about the only time we've seen it. She has her hair down. So there is a willingness there of some sort. Is it artificial? Again, hard to say from this, but her warmth is not the same as Bob Gerard or John Heil. It's very different, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And I think it's worth pursuing, but I feel like that'll come up a lot more in the third one.
I find it.
Well, I'm not going to say anything more about that. Yeah.
Even what we see her wearing, right? It's not. She's not going to wear a yellow blouse, right? I mean, it's basic
for the summertime. Yeah,
it is just white, or it's quite
black or white.
She's not going to stray too far.
Not matronly.
Yes. No. That's
yeah.
Right.
But she is very literally everything in her entire life is black or white.
That's right.
That's great.
Both figuratively and literally. Yeah.
Well done, Bob G. I like that. My next one, I want to talk about the ending and the terror and the fact that these captors that have Cassian, even though he has captured, his patience is extraordinary. I mean, we saw him go to incredible lengths to break out of a prison. So to him, he's bred for this. Like, he can handle this, and his immense patience, waiting to strike until the time is right, waiting until these two factions destroy each other. And it all starts. They start playing this game. And honestly, I'm surprised we haven't.
I forgot to bring that up. You're gonna.
You just know people are going to be playing it. You mentioned Celebration, Bob. You just know that's going to happen. Someone's going to make a TikTok about it or something like that. It almost reminded me of Dodgeball when they do when the Cobras do their thing.
I didn't see that at all. I saw them. It looked like it was going to be a duel. They had seconds, and then they basically started playing rocks, paper, scissors to decide who's in charge.
Exactly.
It was the silliest thing I ever saw.
It was, but it just shows that they're children, right? They're in they have, just because they have blasters doesn't mean they know how to use them. And I think it's so important. And I didn't even realize this at first, but at the end when Cassian leaves, this is Yavin. This is Yavin. Yeah. This is primal Yavin before Yavin 4. Things move in. And just again, they're in the right place. They've got the right people, maybe. But they're just not organized. They don't have any focus, and they're children. They're just thinking in the immediate present, like everybody in this series, except if they're Imperials or Luthen or Mon, and they don't even think through. And then what happens? I firmly believe that when you're off the path, eventually things happen that just push you in the right direction. And they constantly had options to do it. Nothing happens. So this monster comes out, and I can't think of the monster's name right now, comes out and starts killing them and throws things in the chaos. And in the chaos, Cassian gets on that TIE Whisper and flies away. Just flies away because they just can't get out of their own way. And even Mother Nature's like, I can't deal with you guys. And it's also tragic. But again, the importance of having a plan, thinking it through, having a direction, having leaders that you trust. These are very powerful messages.
Agreed.
I took in a deep breath when I saw that was Yavin. That was like, whoa.
Yeah. Oh, that was a huge shock. It was wonderfully done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was.
I'm a little sad at how many of my friends missed that too, by the way. I was like, they were on Yavin. They're like, what? Like,
Yavin 4, that's right.
Well, they haven't seen Star Wars 800 times like I have.
And plus it hasn't happened. It like kind of happens quickly and it's dark and you're just sort of like, what did I just see here? It kind of rocks a little bit.
But it really did put a little bit more of a twist on that story.
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It completely does. Is there any other key rocks that we haven't uncovered yet? This is the episode where we see the concern that Luthen has. Well, I don't know. Gosh, I don't know. I don't want to break my own rule, so I guess I'm not going to. I'm not going to say much about it. I don't know what else I can say about this without kind of spoiling things for episode 3. Wait, can you guys think of anything else we can bring up?
Well, you know what? I think I might know where you're going, Dan, and I might have a way to talk about it. Because this is something that I noted with this.
Sure.
Is I was very sad at seeing how far the character of Tay Kalma seems to have fallen. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of season 1, I really, really liked him. And again, I thought he was somebody who was very devoted to the cause. Mm-hmm. That he was in it for the rebellion. And what we're starting to see here in episode 1 and episode 2 of this season is, you mentioned it earlier, money problems, marriage problems, those type of things that can eat away at your devotion and your commitment to the cause. And I'm just really sad that seems to have happened to Tay. I was really kind of hoping that he and Mon would get together, but yeah.
I had a little bit different take out of the first season.
Okay.
And I extrapolated him a little less to the cause as devotion to Mon. That he would do anything for her, his longtime friend, regardless of the fact that she's married and he's married. If she needs something, he will move mountains to do it. Mm-hmm. And sure, the cause is the right thing because this emperor's bad. But maybe he's not a true rebel. Maybe he's just really devoted to her. And so I see it as extremely sad too, but maybe just in a slightly different way. That even with this devotion, it's been too much over the last year. Mm-hmm. It's too much. And he's finally kind of caving in, and clearly here he is at this event where he's He's dressed up. He's carrying himself wonderfully. He's smiling when you have to smile. But you put that together with his words, you know he is just utterly destroyed when he's not at this big social event. So it's 10 times as bad if he is complaining to her, who he's devoted to seemingly more than anything.
Right.
Yeah. That's an excellent take, John. I think you're right. I think he's way more devoted to Mon than he is ever been to the cause. Yeah, I like that. That's true.
And then without that fantasy of whatever, because I maybe he would have been interested in a dalliance. Maybe that's the impression we get in season 1. I never thought for 1 second that she was in that camp because she's too serious and focused and loyal.
I agree.
She's loyal beyond belief, and it's one of the reasons why we love her as a character. But now we see a man who is his support group is nigh. And he has nothing to stand on or stand up for because Mon's distracted. She can't give him his attention. And everyone around there seems to think that, oh, that's your boyfriend. Her husband says, oh, that your boyfriend had a few drinks last night and blah, blah, blah. And he starts saying the word rebellion or rebel out loud in public. And every time he says it, Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma flinches like she's struck because it's so, just the fact that you would say that out loud. I mean, this is the Empire we're talking about. And it kind of strikes me, and this is a bit of a tangent, so please bear with me. Last week we didn't do an Andor episode because, again, I just want to. I think that's okay because I want to enjoy this. But I went and saw A New Hope on the big screen with my son and some of our friends, and when I watch it, it just, again, it's such an incredible reminder. I mean, in world, everything that people go through for Luke Skywalker to destroy the Death Star, yes. But to compare Star Wars, the original trilogy, to Andor is sort of like comparing an amazing cheeseburger to a steak. I mean, they're both good, but these are very different. These are very
different tastes, yep.
Tonally, and neither is good or bad. They're both excellent. They're both great. I've dedicated an obscene amount of my life to it, as have we all. But they're just so markedly different that I've said this before. Andor puts the war in Star Wars, but it's done in such a way that it could, as we said last week, John, or 2 weeks ago, this could be something that could take place in any era of the United States, other countries. I mean, there are themes, there are patterns, there are big ideas here, things that are important that are being said that transcend any science fiction universe. But the beauty of Star Wars, or a good fictional story, is it allows us, as Mark Twain says, to tell the stories that we wouldn't tell in the real world. And that is the triumph of this series.
And isn't it wonderful that it's able to do that with the long form that it is?
Right.
You can't jam all this into many 2-hour movies. Nope. There have been some magnificent movies that have done some of it, but realistically, for Star Wars, things kind of have to be surface level if you're talking about that length of time, right? An action fantasy movie. Here we're able to have what Bob said earlier, which is all this world building, all this universe building, all this culture that is so fantastic and makes for a more detailed storytelling.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
I'm having a hard time grading this one because I'm still kind of thinking about you. Both giving me a lot to think about, and I knew you both would. But take us out, my friend. Plot your course for the letter grade for Sagrona Teema.
Oh man, it's tough, Dan, and partly because on my last Learning Geeks podcast, I was just saying, we need to lay to rest the idea of grades. So sorry, I know you're a high school teacher, but I'm a corporate learning guy. It's really hard to get a grade.
No, I agree.
You know what? I'm going to tell a little bit of a similar story to you did with episode 1. I think on my first viewing, I probably would have given it a B. I almost would have said, okay, it's a necessary stepping stone to keep the story moving along. After watching it for the third time, and then also in the context of seeing the entire arc, I'm going to go ahead and give it an A. I think it's very solid, and I really enjoyed it for all the reasons I talked about earlier today.
I love that. John?
I haven't mentioned it yet. Both of you have, but I kind of had a similar reaction. I watched it twice. The first time, I thought it was okay. Okay, interesting. Not as good as the first one. But then the second time, taking some notes and getting ready for this, its value went up. There's some really extraordinary moments in it that aren't just extraordinary because of what comes in the next episode that we're not talking about, but they do stand on their own too. So heaven knows, I probably would have given it a B before. Why don't I say A-?
I'm pretty similar to you. I the first time I would have given it a generous B. Maybe I probably would have, if I thought about it, I probably would have even given it a B-. But then I watched it again with different eyes and the gift of time to let my subconscious kind of ruminate on it. And I'm going to give it a solid A-. An A- is still very good.
Yep.
And because I think that there are key things here, and there's so much nuance and subtlety. This isn't a big action. It's probably the least action-packed of Andor so far that we've seen. But there's some important stuff. And now that I've kind of attached this dorsal fin concept to it, it's pretty brilliant. And I can't wait to dive into it for episode 3. Gentlemen, wow. I'm so excited. A good conversation can bring out different ways of looking at things, can it? And I couldn't have thought of two better co-hosts than the two of you. Bob, great again to chat with you. Tell us what's going on with Short for a Stormtrooper and let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, so after our crusading storm through Tokyo, Japan, and celebration and giving out a lot of stickers and wearing a lot of T-shirts, my listenership has doubled, Dan, since there. Thank you, Dan, for showing that on your audio-only podcast. So the podcast is Short for a Stormtrooper. You can find it in that direction, or you can also go to sfaspod.com and get linked to it on your favorite platform of choice. So continuing to build that out in my quest to someday become a semi-professional Star Wars fan like Dan is. And but my day job, my day podcast is called The Learning Geeks. So for the vast intersection of Star Wars fans who are also corporate learning or just learning in general, people invite you to check out Learning Geeks, learninggeekspod.com. You can find us there. I have a lot more listenership over there than I do with Star Wars yet, but it's growing. It's growing.
And that's how you and I became acquainted. I was on the show.
That's right. That's right. We recruited you on Learning Geeks and have had you on a couple of times, and we'll have you on again.
That was fun. And John, thanks again for coming on. I have all of your fan mail continues to come to the Coffee with Kenobi Studios. I will organize it by color, shape, and size for you, just like you requested.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to listening to Learning Geeks. I have much to learn, and looking forward to checking that out as well.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.